Princess Araya sat quietly in the grand hall of the palace, the soft light of the twin moons casting a silver glow on the polished floors. Her heart pounded with nervous energy. Today was the day she would learn her fate, a fate decided not by her own wishes, but by the Council of Elders and the will of the Empire. The heavy doors creaked open, and the royal messenger stepped inside, holding a sealed holographic scroll. Araya's father, Emperor Turin, nodded for him to approach. The messenger's voice was steady but serious as he read aloud the message from the Galactic Alliance. Araya's eyes widened with each word. The Council has decreed that Princess Araya shall enter into a marriage alliance with Commander Jackson of Earth. This union is essential for peace between our worlds. A sharp silence fell over the hall. Araya's breath caught in her throat. She had heard stories about humans. They were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors, ruthless in battle, unyielding and cold. To marry one was more terrifying than any battle she had ever imagined. She tried to steady herself. The human, Commander Jackson, was said to have led many campaigns and never lost. His reputation was one of iron will and harsh decisions. Many feared him. The thought of sharing her life with such a man was overwhelming. Her mind raced with questions. What kind of man was he really? Would he respect her world and its peaceful ways? Or would he see her as just another pawn in a game of power? Emperor Turin's voice broke through her thoughts. Araya, this alliance is more than politics. It is a chance for our people to grow stronger together. I understand your fear, but you are brave. You will face this with honor. Araya looked up, meeting her father's steady gaze. She knew he was right. Their worlds needed this alliance to prevent war. But inside, a storm of emotions swirled: fear, doubt, and a small spark of hope. That night, Araya stood by her window, looking out at the stars. Each one reminded her of the vast galaxy she had yet to understand. Somewhere among those stars was Commander Jackson, a stranger who might change her life forever. She whispered to herself, I must be strong. For my people. For my world. The palace was quiet as she prepared for the journey ahead. Soon, she would leave everything familiar behind and travel to Earth, to meet the man they called Ruthless. Araya didn't know what awaited her there, but she knew one thing. This was only the beginning of a story no one could have predicted. The royal cruiser hummed softly as it glided through the vastness of space. Princess Araya sat by the window, her eyes fixed on the swirling stars outside. The journey to Earth was long, longer than anything she had ever experienced. Every passing light was a reminder of how far she was from home, from everything she knew and loved. Her mind replayed the message again and again. Commander Jackson, the ruthless human. The stories about him were everywhere. Fearless in battle, unshaken by danger, with a reputation that made even the toughest aliens wary. But Araya had never met a human before. What kind of man was he really? She hugged her knees, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity. She wondered if he would be kind or cold. Would he see her as a queen or just a bargaining piece in a political game? The ship's soft chime pulled her from her thoughts. Her personal aide, Lyra, stepped inside quietly. Your Highness, we'll arrive at Earth's orbit in a few hours. Are you ready? Araya nodded slowly. As ready as I can be. Lyra gave her a reassuring smile. You are strong, Princess. Remember, humans are complicated. Just like any other species, you might find surprises waiting for you. Araya wished she could share that hope. The stories she had heard spoke only of human toughness and coldness. But as the stars blurred outside, she allowed herself a small glimmer of possibility, that Jackson might be more than the ruthless warrior he was said to be. The cruiser began its descent toward Earth's atmosphere, shaking gently as it entered the blue planet's protective shield. Below, vast oceans stretched across the surface, dotted with shining cities and endless forests. Earth was alive and vibrant, a world of contrasts, much like the stories she'd heard. Araya took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. Her future waited on the surface below. Soon, she would meet Commander Jackson face to face. As the ship landed on a sprawling military base, Araya's heart quickened. Soldiers in crisp uniforms stood at attention, their eyes curious but respectful. The air was filled with a strange mix of scents: metal, earth, and something she couldn't name. She stepped down from the cruiser, her royal robe flowing behind her. Cameras flashed, recording the historic arrival. The weight of thousands of eyes pressed on her, but Araya kept her head high. This was her duty. Moments later, a tall man approached. Commander Jackson. His face was serious, his eyes sharp and calculating. He wore a uniform marked with medals and battle scars. Araya's breath caught. The man before her was exactly as the stories described: strong, stern, and utterly commanding. But as he bowed respectfully, there was a calm in his gaze that didn't match the ruthless image. For the first time, Araya felt a flicker of something different: curiosity, maybe even hope. Their meeting had begun, but the story was far from over. Araya realized she had much to learn. About this man, about Earth, and about herself. And the journey was only just beginning. Commander Jackson stood tall and silent as Princess Araya approached. The military base buzzed softly around them, but in that moment, all noise seemed to fade. Araya's eyes carefully studied the man in front of her, the one the galaxy called Ruthless. His dark eyes met hers, steady and unreadable. He didn't smile, but there was no cruelty there either. Instead, his gaze held a quiet strength that made Araya feel both uneasy and intrigued. Jackson extended his hand in a formal greeting. "Welcome to Earth, Princess." Araya hesitated for a heartbeat, then placed her hand in his. His grip was firm, strong, but not harsh. It was the grip of a man who had faced many challenges, yet carried himself with discipline and control. She thought of all the stories she had heard, how he was a merciless leader, how he never showed weakness. But now, standing so close, she sensed something else. Beneath the tough exterior was a man shaped by hard choices, someone who bore a heavy responsibility. The days that followed were filled with formal ceremonies, meetings, and introductions. Araya found herself swept into a world of strict order and fast decisions. Jackson moved through it all like a force of nature, commanding respect and attention wherever he went. But for Araya, each moment with him was a test of patience and courage. His face rarely showed emotion, and his words were measured and precise. He spoke of strategy, alliances, and duty, never revealing the man behind the title. One afternoon, Araya watched from a balcony as Jackson trained with soldiers in a vast field. His movements were sharp and exact, each action purposeful. It was clear why he was feared. His presence alone demanded obedience. Yet, when the training ended, Jackson sat quietly alone, staring at the horizon. Araya wondered what thoughts crossed his mind. Was he haunted by past battles? Did he long for peace? That evening, Araya was invited to dine with Jackson in a private room at the base. The atmosphere was quiet, with soft lights and no audience. For the first time, they spoke not as princess and commander, but as two people trying to understand each other. Jackson asked her about her homeworld, its beauty, its people, its traditions. Araya shared stories of peaceful gardens and starry nights, of her people's deep respect for life. He listened intently, his expression softer than she had expected. Then he spoke of his own world, a planet where strength was often the only language understood, where leaders had to make impossible decisions for survival. Their conversation stretched late into the night, breaking down walls built by fear and rumor. Araya began to see that the ruthless human was more complex, shaped by duty, but capable of understanding. Still, uncertainty lingered. Could they truly find common ground? Could two worlds so different come together as one? As Araya retired that night, her thoughts were tangled with hope and doubt. The man she feared was slowly becoming someone she wanted to know. And the path ahead was wide open, filled with challenges, discoveries, and the chance for something new. Days passed quietly at the Earth military base, yet for Princess Araya, each moment was filled with new and unexpected discoveries. She had arrived with fear and hesitation, but now, those feelings were beginning to shift. Commander Jackson remained as steady and serious as ever, but Araya noticed the small details others missed. The way he paused before giving orders, the flicker of concern in his eyes when a soldier faltered, the rare moments when his face softened. One morning, Araya found herself walking near the command center, curiosity pulling her closer. Through a large window, she saw Jackson surrounded by officers, discussing a delicate negotiation with a nearby alien colony. His voice was calm but firm, every word chosen carefully. The meeting was intense, but when it ended, Jackson didn't storm off. Instead, he lingered, quietly listening to his officers' concerns. Araya realized that this ruthless leader was also a careful listener, someone who valued every perspective. That afternoon, Jackson invited Araya to observe a training simulation. She expected another display of force and power, but instead, she saw strategy, patience, and teamwork. Jackson directed the exercise with precision, encouraging his soldiers while calmly adjusting plans as new challenges appeared. It was clear he demanded excellence, but he also inspired loyalty. Araya was surprised by how the soldiers respected him, not out of fear, but because they trusted his judgment. As the simulation ended, Jackson approached her. "What do you think?" Araya hesitated. "I thought you were ruthless, but I see now that you are careful, even kind in your way." Jackson's lips twitched in what might have been a small smile. Ruthless is a label made by those who do not know the whole story. That evening, during dinner, their conversation deepened. Araya spoke about her own fears, the pressure of being a princess, the uncertainty of marrying someone she barely knew. Jackson listened quietly, then shared a memory from his past. "In my world, leadership means sacrifice. Sometimes we must make choices no one else can understand. It is not cruelty, it is responsibility." Araya nodded, feeling a connection growing between them. The next day, she visited the base's medical bay after a tiring day. Jackson was there, checking on injured soldiers. She watched as he gently encouraged a young recruit recovering from a wound. The kindness in his actions surprised her more than anything. The same man who was called Ruthless showed genuine care. For the first time, Araya wondered if the stories she had heard were only part of the truth. That night, lying in her room, she reflected on everything she had seen. The man she feared was not just a ruthless warrior. He was a leader shaped by hardship and compassion. Still, the road ahead was uncertain. Could she trust him fully? Could they find a way to be more than duty-bound partners? Araya closed her eyes, determined to learn more, to see the man behind the mask, and perhaps discover a future neither of them expected. The day started like any other on the Earth military base, with soldiers moving swiftly through their routines and commanders focused on strategy. Princess Araya tried to keep up, but the pace was tiring. Her body ached, and a dull headache pulsed behind her eyes. By midday, the weakness became impossible to ignore. Araya excused herself from the council meeting and retreated to her quarters, hoping for rest. But the discomfort only worsened. Her skin felt hot, and the dizziness made it hard to focus. The princess sat down heavily, realizing she was too ill to continue. News of her condition reached Commander Jackson quickly. Without hesitation, he arrived at her door, his face serious but concerned. "Princess, you should be in the medical bay," he said firmly. "I will accompany you." Araya nodded, grateful despite her pride. She allowed herself to be led through the busy corridors by the commander she had feared for so long. At the medical bay, skilled doctors began their examination. Jackson stayed close, quietly observing, asking questions, and ensuring the best care was given. For Araya, his presence was calming. She noticed how he didn't rush or bark orders, but spoke softly to the doctors and nurses. His attention was focused on her well-being, not his reputation. Hours passed as she rested under the care of the medical team. Jackson visited often, bringing her water and small comfort items, his usual stern face softened by genuine concern. One moment stood out, when Araya awoke from a brief nap and found Jackson sitting nearby, reading quietly. She blinked in surprise. "You're staying." He looked up and gave a faint smile. "You are not alone here." The words touched something deep inside her. This was not the ruthless warrior she had imagined, but a man who could be kind when it mattered most. Over the next few days, Araya's strength returned. Each time Jackson visited, their conversations grew longer and more personal. They talked about their worlds, hopes, and fears. Two leaders bound by duty, slowly building trust. Araya realized that kindness could come from strength. Jackson's careful attention showed her that being powerful did not mean being cruel. When she was finally well enough to leave the medical bay, Araya felt a new sense of hope. Maybe this marriage could be more than a political alliance. Maybe it could become a true partnership. As she walked beside Jackson back to her quarters, she glanced at him with newfound respect. "Thank you," she said quietly. He nodded. "We will need to understand each other if this alliance is to succeed." Araya smiled faintly, feeling the weight of the future, but also the possibility of something unexpected. A connection built on trust, respect, and kindness. The journey had taken a surprising turn, and the princess was ready to face what came next. The evening sky over Earth was painted with soft hues of orange and purple as Princess Araya and Commander Jackson sat together in the quiet garden of the military base. The tension that had filled their first meetings was slowly fading, replaced by a growing curiosity about each other's lives. Araya looked around at the unfamiliar plants and flowers, their colors vibrant and strange compared to the gentle gardens of her homeworld. She sighed softly, then turned to Jackson. "Tell me about your world, Commander. What is it like to live as a human?" Jackson's gaze settled on the horizon, his expression thoughtful. "It is not an easy place," he began. "Our planet is harsh and unpredictable. Humans have had to fight to survive many times, against nature, against each other. Strength and courage are necessary, or we would not have lasted this long." Araya nodded slowly. "That explains the stories I have heard about you, but strength is not everything, is it?" "No," Jackson admitted. "It is also about protecting what you care about. That means making hard choices, sometimes sacrificing for the greater good. Not everyone understands that." Araya felt a deep respect for the man beside her. She shared stories of her home, a world where peace was treasured above all, where people lived in harmony with nature, guided by wisdom passed down through generations. "Our people believe in balance," she said, "in finding ways to live without destroying the world around us. Sometimes it feels fragile, but it is our greatest strength." Jackson listened quietly, absorbing her words. "Your world sounds like a place worth protecting," he said softly. For the first time, Araya saw Jackson not as a ruthless commander, but as a man shaped by experience, who carried the weight of his people's survival on his shoulders. As the night deepened, their conversation turned personal. Jackson spoke of battles lost and won, of friends he had lost, and the loneliness of command. Araya spoke of her fears as a princess, of the expectations placed on her, and the burden of representing her people. In that garden, under the stars of a foreign sky, two very different worlds began to understand each other. Araya realized that beyond the politics and rumors, Jackson was a man who longed for peace just as much as she did. And Jackson saw in Araya a strength not measured by power, but by kindness and wisdom. Their shared stories built a fragile bridge, one that could connect their worlds if nurtured carefully. As the night ended, Araya stood and looked at Jackson with a small smile. "Thank you for sharing your world with me." He nodded. "And thank you for showing me yours." Though the future remained uncertain, in that moment, they found hope. Hope that their union might be the beginning of something new and strong. The days that followed were filled with new experiences for Princess Araya and Commander Jackson. As they spent more time together, They began to share pieces of their cultures, learning from each other in ways neither expected. One morning, Araya invited Jackson to her private quarters to witness a traditional ceremony from her homeworld. The room was transformed with delicate fabrics, soft lights, and fragrant flowers. Araya wore a flowing robe embroidered with silver threads that shimmered in the light. "This ceremony celebrates unity and trust," she explained, moving gracefully through the steps. Her voice was calm and warm. "It is a way to honor those who join together in bond." Jackson watched intently as Araya lit small candles and recited an ancient prayer. Though unfamiliar, he felt the weight and beauty of the tradition. It was a moment of peace, a glimpse into the heart of her people. When the ceremony ended, Jackson smiled and said, "It is unlike anything I have seen, powerful in its quiet way." In return, Jackson invited Araya to join a human celebration known as the Festival of Lights. The evening was lively, filled with music, laughter, and colorful decorations. People danced and shared food, welcoming her with curiosity and warmth. Araya was surprised by the joy and energy of the event. Though different from her world's serene rituals, it carried a similar message of hope, togetherness, and new beginnings. As they walked through the festival, Jackson explained the history behind the celebration. "It marks the end of a long winter and the promise of brighter days. It reminds us that even after darkness, light returns." Araya nodded, feeling a deep connection to the idea. "We have similar beliefs that even in hard times, hope must remain." Their shared moments of culture brought them closer, breaking down walls built by fear and misunderstanding. Araya saw that Jackson was not just a commander, but a man who valued tradition and community. Later, they explored the base's library together, exchanging books and stories from their worlds. Araya showed Jackson poems written by her ancestors, full of nature's beauty and the stars above. Jackson shared tales of human explorers and heroes who shaped history with courage and heart. Through these exchanges, their respect for each other grew. They discovered that despite their differences, they shared a common desire for peace, for connection, and for a future built together. One evening, as they sat beneath the earth sky, Araya smiled and said, "Perhaps this alliance will be stronger than we imagined." Jackson looked at her, his eyes softer than before. "It already is." The journey from fear to understanding had begun, and with it, the promise of a new bond, one that could unite their worlds in ways neither had dared to hope. The alliance between Princess Araya's people and Earth was still fragile, but it had already stirred unease among powerful factions. Not everyone welcomed this union, especially those who feared change or sought to control the galaxy through fear. One evening, as the base prepared for a diplomatic reception, alarms suddenly blared through the halls. The calm was shattered by urgent voices and rushing footsteps. Araya and Jackson were quickly escorted to the command center, where a holographic map showed multiple enemy ships approaching Earth's orbit. A group opposed to the alliance had launched an attack, hoping to stop the marriage and to stabilize peace. Jackson's eyes sharpened as he studied the map. "We need to act fast. If they reach Earth, it could mean war." Araya steadied her breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "What can we do?" Jackson outlined a plan. "Our ships will intercept and contain the threat. We must show strength and unity. I will lead the defense personally." As the fleet launched into space, Araya stayed by Jackson's side in the command center, watching every move. The tension was thick, but so was the determination. The battle was fierce. Ships clashed in silent bursts of light, tactics unfolding like a deadly dance. Jackson coordinated his forces with precision, his voice calm but commanding. Araya marveled at his skill. The way he balanced courage with strategy, never reckless, always focused. When the enemy ships were finally driven back, cheers erupted through the base, but the victory was tempered by the knowledge that threats remained. After the battle, Jackson turned to Araya. "This attack was meant to divide us. Instead, It has brought us closer. Our alliance is stronger now." Araya nodded, feeling the new respect for the man who faced danger without fear. "I understand now why you are called Ruthless. Not because you seek destruction, but because you protect what matters." In the days that followed, Araya and Jackson worked together to strengthen defenses and prepare for the future. Their partnership was tested in ways neither expected, but with every challenge, their trust deepened. The people of both worlds began to see them not just as leaders forced into union, but as a team capable of guiding the galaxy toward peace. One evening, as they stood side by side watching the stars, Araya said softly, "We are no longer strangers." Jackson smiled, the weight of battle giving way to something quieter and stronger. "We never were." The alliance, born of duty and fear, was now a bond of hope, a promise that together, they could face whatever the galaxy had in store. The days following the battle were quieter, but the change between Princess Araya and Commander Jackson was clear to all who saw them. No longer distant or guarded, they moved with a shared purpose, their connection deepening beyond the bounds of duty. One afternoon, Araya found herself walking through the base's gardens with Jackson. The soft breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers, a peaceful contrast to the tension that had filled the days before. They talked openly now, sharing thoughts and hopes that had been locked away. Jackson spoke of the loneliness of command, how sometimes strength was a shield for vulnerability. Araya shared her own fears of failing her people, of being bound by expectations too heavy for one person. "I used to think you were cold," Araya admitted, "but I see now that your strength protects more than just yourself." Jackson smiled quietly. "And I've learned that kindness is not weakness, but a different kind of power." Their conversations stretched into evenings, their bond growing with each shared story and quiet moment. Araya began to see the man beneath the commander, a person shaped by duty, pain, and hope. One evening, as they stood overlooking the city lights below, Araya reached out and took Jackson's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. "We've come a long way," she said softly. Jackson nodded. "And there's still much to face. But together, we can face anything." Their union, once feared and uncertain, was becoming a symbol of unity, trust, and a new future. Word of their growing closeness spread across the base and beyond. The people began to believe in the strength of their leaders not just as rulers, but as partners. For Araya, the fear that had once gripped her heart was replaced by hope and determination. She no longer saw Jackson as ruthless, but as a man who could stand beside her, equal in strength and spirit. As the stars twinkled above, the princess and the commander prepared to take the next steps together. Their marriage was more than a political alliance now. It was a partnership built on understanding and respect. The galaxy watched as two very different worlds began to heal and grow, united by a bond stronger than fear. And for Araya and Jackson, the future was no longer a mystery. It was a promise. The Great Hall of the Earth Alliance stood filled with dignitaries, soldiers, and representatives from countless worlds. The air buzzed with excitement and hope. Today was the day Princess Araya and Commander Jackson would be joined in marriage, sealing the alliance between their worlds. Araya stood at the entrance, dressed in a flowing gown that blended the traditions of her homeworld with the colors of Earth. Her heart beat steady, no longer filled with fear, but with confidence and hope. Beside her, Jackson waited, calm and strong, his usual stern expression softened by a quiet smile. As they walked down the aisle together, the crowd rose in respectful silence. The ceremony was simple but powerful, a symbol of unity, trust, and the promise of a new future. When they exchanged vows, their voices were clear and sincere. They pledged not just to rule, but to lead together, to protect their people, and build a lasting peace. Araya looked into Jackson's eyes and saw the man she had come to know. A leader shaped by sacrifice, strength, and kindness. Jackson saw the princess who had grown from fear into a partner ready to face the challenges ahead. After the ceremony, the celebration was filled with music, laughter, and the coming together of cultures. People danced and shared stories, bridging the gaps between worlds with joy. In the days that followed, Araya and Jackson worked side by side to strengthen their alliance. They met with leaders from both planets, listened to concerns, and forged plans for cooperation in science, trade, and defense. Their partnership was more than political, it was personal. They learned from each other, respected each other's differences, and faced challenges as one. One evening, standing on the balcony of the Alliance headquarters, Araya turned to Jackson. "We have come so far." Jackson nodded. "And there is still much to do. But together, we are stronger than any threat." Araya smiled, feeling the weight of the future, but also the strength of their union. This is just the beginning. Their marriage marked not only a personal bond, but a new era, an era where two very different worlds could unite, learn from one another, and face the galaxy's challenges together. The story of the terrified princess and the ruthless human had transformed into a tale of hope, trust, and strength. And as stars shone brightly overhead, Araya and Jackson stood united, ready to lead their people into a future filled with promise.